Good evening, guys. I hope that you had a great day and so far a very good week. And as this day comes to a close, I hope that you're settling in and that you're safe and happy wherever this Go Live finds you. So I'm going to give you guys a heads up. So behind me, I've got boxes full of candles and stuff. And you know that I have this big backdrop behind me because I just like it there. I just think it adds to the whole ambiance. Well, because it's a bit of like a drape, there's room behind it. So I think my little black kitten Loki is behind it. And then my little, you know what, disturber is on the other side playing and patting. I'm trying to get Loki. Loki's my black cat. So if you guys hear chaos, wrestling, movement behind me, it is my two you-know-what disturbers behind me causing the ruckus. Hi, Christy. I'm glad to have you here. I was just giving everybody a heads up that I've got two of my cats playing behind me. So if you hear or see anything, that's what it is. Yeah, they're being little disturbers. So you'll have to let me know how you're doing in the comments. I saw your post. You've been very productive. You've been a busy lady, and that's a good thing because I know it makes you happy with your endeavors that you've been engaging in. So we're going to finish up with the wands tonight, which I'm really excited about. I feel like it's just been really fun, learning about the suit of wands and basically the complexity of it. And it's something how the suits differ. They overall have different meanings to them, So, which I know, duh, but it's like a different energy is a better way of wording it. So last night we had talked about the Nine of Wands and all the various meanings assigned to this card. I'm briefly holding this up because it's important as we go into the Ten of Wands. With this one, what we're seeing is possibly a lot of distrust in, say, this person's colleagues, friends, circle regarding this wand, and kind of forming a barrier between themselves and the rest of the world. Possibly a project that they're questioning, that they're not wanting to let it go, and they're wondering how well it will be accepted. The overall feeling of fatigue, being tired, yet holding their position, despite how they're very guarded, and they have the head wrap, right? So we're going from this, which if you didn't see this go live last night, I always tell people to catch it, watch it in our group, or you can find it on YouTube, where you can find all the tarot teaching moments that our group has done so far. So tonight, we're about to delve into the Ten of Wands. So we're going from that card to this card. And even without knowing anything about tarot, again, it's really important that you guys are intuitive, tarot readers first and foremost. And you get that by just interpreting what you see, which as humans, we do that anyway on a daily basis. There's so many people, sounds, so much going on around us, which we call stimuli, that our brains quickly categorize the info to determine what we need to prioritize or pay attention to. Well, same thing with this card. You're assessing the big picture, and each time different details will pop out at you, and they generally can have some meaning to them. So you need to be very self-aware and pay attention. And then through consistency, it's how you learn the cards. So with this, we have the Roman numeral for 10. And what we're seeing here is our central figure. Again, it's the energy of the card. It can be male or female, although technically this is a male that's pictured. And we're seeing all 10 wands, which are very symbolic. It depends. It could be the relationship, career, finances, all these accolades, accomplishments, responsibilities. This individual is holding all of them. And because of that, they really don't have a whole lot of visibility. So in the background, we have in a rather pretty far away, we have what appears to be maybe his home, which is part of a community. There's a lot of green in the distance. And then the ground, again, color is it's got a lot of meaning to it. We're seeing that bright yellow, which honestly, it takes on more of an orange hue. So it's both kind of like that yellow orange color. So it would be like both of those meanings for those colors. So with yellow, we have warmth, enlightenment. We can see our way to where it's not like the moon where you have not full illumination, but that's an overwhelming good indicator. And then with orange, being that the wands are all about the element of fire, is all about that fiery enthusiasm that's hard to be contained. Well, our central figure is very ambitious, intelligent, and motivated, and has accomplished so much, because now here we are at the end of our wands journey. However, we have a problem, okay? So here we have red mixed in with the orange, red being symbolic of love, anger. It could be passion. It also means victorious. Okay, so think of the words that we associate with color. And then with the orange, again, we have that excitement, enthusiasm, that fiery energy. I want you to think fire when you think of orange. And it looks like here, as part of like his vest or tunic, we've got shades of orange and red, which take on those color meanings. So that and his feet are red. So at this point, this is fire that has not been well contained, and which I should say they, have been very successful. So many things done, right? So many things to be proud of that they've worked hard on. However, here's our problem. This individual is in their own way, okay? The sky is blue. There are no obstacles. There are no clouds blocking visibility. And their home is in the distance. However, our central character has made the questionable decision of not delegating to others who they work with, or simply saying no, or reassessing time frames like we've talked about in previous Go Lives. It's having your voice and being able to respectfully communicate with others and setting boundaries, which last night when we were talking about the Nine of Wands, this was also symbolic of setting some boundaries, which would be those 8 wands in the background. Well, again, we had a very fatigued, exhausted figure, very much guarding the one, right? Well, here it shows that there's a need for delegation and boundary setting, because what's happening is we do not have a balance between, say, work life and home life. This person is so weighed down with their work in whatever shape or form that takes that they cannot even find the way home. And it reminds me very much of people, and I've had jobs to where I've had to be like this. I know this card very well, to where the job is set up in such a way to where you take your work home with you. So for 9 months, I was a home health nurse. And so I would go to people's homes and I would give medical care. Okay. I would see my patients starting early in the morning. I wouldn't finish up till, say, more toward the evening time. You're around supper time. Usually about 5:30 I'd get home. I would go use the bathroom, and then I would take my company issued laptop. I'd sit on the couch, and I am not exaggerating, I would be charting to about 10:30 at night. A lot of the charting that home health nurses do, and even therapists, they're right along with us with the documentation. You're talking extensive charting for insurance companies with a bunch of bubbles and free texting, very dated systems that are not very tech savvy and efficient. And then you got to like pause to call your people for the next day, and you're not getting paid for calling your people the next day. That was another caveat to this too. And then you pick up your work and you keep working till late at night, and then you you go to sleep and then you get up and you do it all over again. And that would be 5 days throughout the week. And sometimes on the weekends, you'd have to work. So I know this feeling very well. And what has happened to me with that position and then other positions I've even had in the past where I did some management roles, and that took precedence even over my personal life because my work, they give you a work phone. Your work follows you home and it can disrupt that work-life balance. That's not a good thing. And I think I alluded to it last night. The cost of success, there's always a cost to it. There has to be a balance, right? Or one of the others has to suffer. Is it going to be your home life or your work life? It is very hard to achieve a balance between the two. At least I believe it is. You guys can tell me if you've had a different experience. Maybe it's nursing, because that's my frame of reference. So it's really important. This person has lost track of even like how they felt starting out anew, like the whole purpose to like their profession or their hobby or their business, whatever that may be. They're so caught up in the task. And I think it's a problem, say, with this frame of thought, when you'll hear them say, oh, I don't want to give it to somebody else to do it because they're not going to do it right anyway. I know what I'm doing and I'll know that it's done right the first time. There's a couple different problems with that frame of thought, which is going on with their character. For one, your team doesn't grow. So they're not learning what they need to learn to grow themselves and excel and share in that success, because this would be like a gatekeeper, someone very much guarding of everything. Work-wise, project-wise, they want to do everything. A second thing is it's a reflection of actually poor leadership. Years ago, this was when I worked at the VA. I went through training to be an assistant nurse manager. And one of the things that we had to read was a book. And I always screw up the title of it. I'm sorry for that. It's the 2-Second Monkey or 10-Second Monkey. And I cannot remember the author again. This was many years ago. But the book was basically about, imagine all the various tasks that you do at work in just a common day, all the things that have to get done. And what happens is this central character's, say, staff would come toward them saying, hey, this is my problem. Can you help me out? And the book basically said if they have the knowledge and the training, okay, to be able to accomplish this task, you assess this with them, and you even may have documentation reflecting they've had this training. You can assess for that. You can look at them and be like, it's my understanding you've had the training on this particular issue you're talking to me about. Do you have questions about it? And then you still have them keep the ownership for that, or else they won't grow. You can be like, hey, you go and resolve this with your colleague and find the solution based on our policy and protocol. And then if you need me, I'm here. Now, a lot of people in leadership positions, especially when they're this intelligent and successful, they are so driven and motivated. They just want to do everything themselves because they know it'll be done right every which way, every time, right? But their team's not growing. And then it enables their staff to put all these other problems onto, say, their manager's lap. And this is how that manager feels. They can't even get their own work done because they're having to put all these fires out. Now, the only time you wouldn't just say, hey, you've had the training, you're verbalizing to me, you understand how this works, procedure wise, the expectation is you need to go and do it and let me know if you still have issues. Would be, of course, if it's a safety thing, if they are wanting your experience in something and it just doesn't feel right. But if it's just trying to release ownership of a problem and put it in, say, your lap, that's not cool. Again, you have to set boundaries. And with this individual, they haven't done that. Now, say with love, this can mean somebody where it's a burdensome relationship, whether it be romantic or a friendship. It's one person that is bearing the weight of that relationship, and it is not an equally shared burden. So when you see the 10 of Wands, the main key word I want you to think of is burden. That is the key word with this, and with many responsibilities. That's the other thing. So when we're talking career, I've extensively went into that. This is somebody very accomplished, a lot of accolades, a lot of responsibility with these wands, and they're not being that team player. They're not delegating enough. And it's also the emotional arena. So say if we're feeling very emotionally compromised, it's asking for help. That's why you have a team you work with, and everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. It's okay to ask for help. It doesn't make someone look less than. This, from a financial viewpoint, can stand for a financial burden. Again, that keyword burden keeps popping up. So this means that things are kind of out of control, that it's been allowed to worsen and worsen without an accurate game plan and intervention executed, and it's gotten pretty bad to where they're bearing the brunt of that. So that's some things to kind of keep in mind with it upright. Now, I'm about to dismiss another myth in tarot, because I know as I go along, I kind of like address them. Not all reversals in tarot are bad. Let that sink in for a minute. Not all of them are bad. Just like all 78 cards, they each have a medicine to them. And I'm quoting Lindsay Mack off Wild Soul Tarot. I love her podcast. She's the one that uses that term a lot, and I believe in it. They each offer medicine, which is a unique insight or perspective if you sit and assess the card, what you see, and you think upon it. We can grow from all of them. So, when this is in reverse, we're generally speaking the reverse meaning and energy of when it's upright. This is a good thing. So what we're seeing here is with love, it's not a very balanced relationship. And so this individual who's doing all the work is done. They set that boundary saying, you know, I care about you. I care about our friendship or our relationship if it's romantic. I'm exhausted. You don't return everything else I do in this relationship. And basically their cup is empty. There's nothing left to give for this friendship or romantic relationship. So they withdraw. They're done, which is a good thing. They set boundaries. With career, it's finally letting some of those wands go. So instead of carrying 10 of them, and obviously not navigating the situation very well, at this point, they let some of them go. They utilize the people around them with these creative endeavors, with work, what have you, and everybody wins. Everybody grows in their knowledge and experience base. Everybody feels trusted and valued, and they grow as a team. To where even when this main character, even when they're not around, it's okay, because they know their resources, their policies and procedures. They know who to call and ask questions to. They don't need to have this person there to be successful. That is the goal of any good leader, is to enable your team to perform to where they don't need you to perform. You're there in case they might need you if something's not very clear or it's something rare that comes up. But a good leader gives their people a voice, backs them up. They're out there interacting with their people and getting the job done with them. That marks a great leader, because when we started off with our main character, they were alone, like thinking and then executing that movement as far as that travel and momentum. And then we're building up progression, being challenged, celebrated, right? Then all these accolades and accomplishments, they keep working, and again, just like that fire, it's hard to contain, right? Keeps growing and expanding. But the flaw in our central character is being able to share this fire consistently with other people to where these projects are all shared and everybody shares in that burden, you know. So that's a good thing. And then with finances, it means basically it's releasing that financial burden. So unfortunately, if it's really bad, somebody's probably looking at bankruptcy. It depends on how far in the hole they are. Or being that this is minor and not like a major arcana card, it could be like, you know, I've let this go on long enough. I'm going to get me, like, unfortunately, a second job. It depends on the severity. Or I'm going to put in extra work. I'm going to pick up some overtime shifts, but I'm going to let some of this burden go. And the way to do that is, of course, to ask for help. So maybe a financial advisor, somebody that's really good with money, an accountant, get some help as far as releasing this burden. So I really like that insight on it. So now I think I'm going to look to make sure that I covered all the meanings that I wanted to cover with this. So let's see here. So, that's an important part too. So let's say if it's yourself or another person who gets this card during a reading, I'm going to give you a heads up. There's a lot of, like we were talking about, that red coloration especially. There could be a lot of anger and frustration. Okay, this is somebody that's very just kind of hard on themselves. They're here for a reason. They're driven, but they can be kind of hard on themselves. So they may not be very responsive to their reading, to where they're more in survival mode at this point. They're not at a good point to really listen and take in what you're saying. So like one thing I customarily do is when I read for other people or even myself at home, I take pictures of my spreads. And I encourage people to look at them even after I read for them, to look up the cards if they want, but then more importantly, what they intuitively feel and see when they look at these cards for later reference. Because like a Celtic spread is so big, you're talking a 30-minute reading. It can go even later than that, depending on the complexity and all the issues that come up in one reading. Because as humans, we're complex. But at least it gives somebody the opportunity to look back and be like, oh, wait, I remember Kat said this about this card, or I feel this way, or this is what I see in the cards. And I get a lot of good feedback from customers. They like pictures of their spreads. And to me, it just makes sense, right? But because, again, they may not be receptive. And let's say, okay, now one other myth about tarot, and there's going to be some strong opinions about it. When I very first started reading, they say if you're stressed out, you have a lot of negativity going on, not pick up a deck, because that negative energy will be on your cards and your whole reading will be off. But the thing is, it's when we're struggling and needing objectivity and insight and time to meditate, more importantly, and have times of quiet, that's when you need to pick this deck up. And so when you do your spread, let's say if you're looking at the cards and they don't resonate with you at all, well, you're going to probably take a picture of them like we were talking about. I would encourage you to do that and then look at it another time. See if it resonates with you. If it doesn't, they generally say to wait about 3 days and then try it again, and not to excessively do spreads for, say, every decision that you make, because then we're getting into obsessive behavior. So generally speaking, you're looking at a Celtic cross. Like I do mine weekly because it makes me happy and I find value in it. Some people might do it once a month. They might do one every, every 3 months, every 6 months. Everybody's different, and that's okay. So you just it's all like, there's no hard set rules with tarot. It's whatever resonates with you. That's what you should do. And then, of course, when you read for others, you adapt, because we're all not going to see things the same, and that's okay. So that's really important to bring up. So I'm going to bring up the meanings. Let's see. We'll review those. So we have too many responsibilities, a need to delegate, multitasking with a wide range of demands, a need for support from others, also sharing emotional burdens. Possibly this could be somebody carrying issues from the past is another perspective, to where they have a lot of baggage and they're just not letting go of it. They may need to find a less draining job. Yes, I've had to do that, personally speaking. Redirect your energy, which is, think of your energy as a gas tank. It's finite, it's limited. So, for example, if all of our central character's energy is invested in these ones, they don't have any energy left. By the time they do stumble home, do you think they're going to have energy or any desire to interact with their family members or even to do anything around the house? No. Think of your energy as, like I had mentioned, like a gas tank. You have a certain amount each day you wake up with, and you replenish it throughout the day by hydrating, by consuming food for glucose, which fuels our cellular processes in our body. It's a requirement. You have to have carbs. Are good for you. They're not evil, because it's a source of glucose that you need for that. So that's just a little FYI. It's just when it's excessive. If we have excessive carbs and we don't burn them off, we store them as fat. Just a quick learning moment with that. But the thing is, you have a finite amount of it that you'll try to replenish throughout the day, but it's like your gas tank. After you use it for all of this, if you're not delegating and not working with others appropriately and asking for help, you will not have enough energy to take care of yourself or to be present for the people you care about in your life. So it's very important that this, although it's uncomfortable, it's so hard for people to ask for help. It's easier for us to give. It makes us feel good to take care of other people, versus accepting help is so uncomfortable. That's a very common human thing that we all feel, because a lot of times, and I'm guilty of it, especially years ago when I was a new nurse, you'll have like as nurses, we're task oriented. We have so much going on with all of our patients, and you may think, well, shoot, so-and-so, if they're freed up, it'd really help me if they could put an IV in or hang some blood if someone needs a blood transfusion. But then you're thinking, nah, I bet they've been working hard. I'll just execute A and B, whatever those tasks are, and then I'll hang the blood. But then all this stuff pops up. And then you get frustrated. And so that's why it's so important to ask for help. Or if you help your colleague, all you have to do when they're in this state of mind is you look at them and you're like, hey, what is one thing I can do to help you out right now? And you will see watch their facial expressions. They'll process it and they'd be like, ooh, it'd really help me if you could get an IV into this room, into this patient. They need their IV changed, or they lost their IV, or could you do this? And yeah, if you're caught up, that's that teamwork dynamic. And I speak from nursing experience, but it's whatever your profession is. That's how you approach people you work with, and they love you for it. It's better than watching your teammate run, back and forth, back and forth. You've got your stuff in the computer and you're caught up and you're twiddling your thumbs. Because one day that's going to be you or me running our tails off, hoping somebody would be like, hey, you need some help? Well, yes, I'll take your help, Let's see here. And then we touched on the unbalanced relationships here. So they're talking about the neglected relationships. And again, it's just the lack of energy to be able to interact with anybody else, because these wands have totally used up all their energy. Let's see here. What else? So with love, it mentions the burdensome relationship with too many responsibilities. We went over career, we went over finances, and then with it being reversed, one interpretation online said that somebody is more so in their head about stress. It's not really realistic. I could see that viewpoint. So I think sometimes we're our own worst enemy, to where there's other outside factors, say outside of work or our projects or even our friendships, that negatively impact us. and to where every little thing, even if it's not a burden or overwhelming, it feels that way. And so sometimes we think and feel things that are not true, if that makes sense. And so when it's in reverse, instead of it being a true burden, like when it's upright, this is somebody being in their head to where they're not in a really good mental space with that. It's perceived to be burdensome, although it may not be. But then you know what? A key perception, and I learned this too, perception is our reality. We process stimuli with our brains based on our senses, right? Our brain processes it, we take action. So even say if my husband or a good friend may hear or see something different, I might see or hear it differently than them. It's going to make me feel differently. I'm going to think differently. And that's just how we're wired, you know? So that's why it's really important when you converse with people, be like, hey, you know, if you're confused or lost or whatever, you know, I'm hearing this from you. I'm hearing you're telling me that A and B is going on and it makes you feel this way. A lot of times people just want to be listened to and valued. They just want you to be present, not necessarily solve their problems or anything like that, but just to have somebody be present and listen is a gift, you know? So that I thought that was a cool way of looking at this. And other than that, it's freedom from burdens and responsibilities. Again, it's getting help and sharing those. And I love it. Basically, it's the opposite of the upright meaning. So this one, it's not so bad as far as remembering, I think. And now I think we'll delve into the other cards for comparison. So let's see here. See here, we have our crow friend. And notice how our crow, despite the wings being fully outstretched, is flying low to the ground with this cumbersome pile of wands. And note that they are secured in like a red and orange type securing device, like a rope of sorts. Again, those colors have meaning like we talked about with that Rider-Waite-Smith card. They're not really, this crow is not going to make much forward progression because this is bigger than the crow. It cannot take to the air and fly very far. So it's going to have to drop some of its weight, like we were talking about the various ways of doing that. And then in the background, we've got shades of white and blue. And there appears to be a city in the background. So to me, when I see the blue, even though we're in the wand suit, blue stands for water, which is related to cups. So when I see that blue in the card, I'm thinking emotions are very much part of this card. They are present and not far behind our fire. So that's something to be aware of. And when I see the city, you think of all the stimuli and chaos, but I also get very industrial vibes from that backdrop. So again, usually people do often refer to work or any type of group projects with this card especially. Here we have our black and white image rather of, it appears to be a boy or a man. And look at that basket. Like, they can't even walk correctly in this tunnel. It is just, it's like enclosing around them. So this would not be a good place for a claustrophobic person. The ground, I mean, it looks like it's a pretty good path. They can see where they're going, but they're going to be so slow getting there. Not to mention that posture is not good for their back. This is not healthy for them. And just look at that face. Just hating life, and that's no way to be. Now, if somebody shared in that burden and helped this individual carry all these wands, that would be cool. Or maybe somebody else would be like, you know, that tunnel bites. It is way too narrow and in poor repair. Let me show you a better tunnel that's shorter and will get you to where you're going faster. All you have to do is ask, because some people may be aware of stuff you don't even know they're aware of. So I like what the artist did with that. Now this is from the Light Seers deck. we have a lady, and look at that, and that poor ox. Like, look at all that baggage that they're carrying. And it would appear that they started at the very top of this hill, and we're seeing these rooted wands that are lit. So again, these are responsibilities, accomplishments, all this good stuff that came from the one suit. They have been on this long journey. They finally reached the end of it with the 10, but they've got a lot of baggage. So when I see this again, it does, if someone could help, maybe there's another ox, that would be cool. Or it's also, when we think of baggage, letting stuff go that no longer serves us. And that's hard to do. We carry hurt and pain inside of us, inside our shadow selves. It is being very self-aware. That's why I'm big on journaling and even talking to people I'm really close to about things that bug me. Because like for me, myself, I can speak for it. I compartmentalize. There's certain things that are so painful, you bury them deep down and symbolically think of them being in a box and you lock it. And you do your best not to think about that time and how it made you feel. But then stuff comes up in life, or you have an interaction with someone who caused that pain. And then that little box becomes unlocked, and it's a shadow self, because our shadow selves are with us. And if we don't like confront them, whether it be counseling, you name it, getting professional help, that's very much, we probably all need professional help, honestly, and get some sort of viewpoint and perspective on it to where we can heal, experience the pain, not compartmentalize it, but experience the hurt and pain, sit with it, process it, and then move on. Then we heal. And then it's like that little snake skin just shedding away, and then the little snake starts anew, or like the little butterfly coming out of the chrysalis. That old way of being doesn't serve them anymore. But that painful shed of the snake, or the transition that little caterpillar had to go through, for that internal rest and reflection and that evolving into that little butterfly, that was painful. That was not comfortable. So I think that that's very symbolic with this card. It really is. So that's why it's really important to pay attention to the cards that are, say, around, say, like this card for a spread. It gives you other dimensions as to what that could be, if that makes sense. You put the data together. So I always leave off with the card not based on Rider-Waite-Smith. And so this one, again, I love the art. This deck is so beautiful. What we're seeing looks to be like a little warrior. It appears to be feminine. And she has taken refuge under what appears to be a rather large kitten. I interpret this as a feeling of vulnerability, because by the end of this suit, someone's very, they should be feeling very strong and confident and empowered and all that good stuff. But instead, there's a vulnerability there and an uncertainness. And so she's very on guard, holding that spear, which is synonymous with a wand, some scant vegetation. But really, if someone's new to learning tarot and they get this card, they're not going to get all that insight that, say, we got from the Rider-Waite-Smith. And I'm going to hold them up like I do. I mean, it's like, again, it's like night and day. And then I'll hold up the other ones. Again, looking for like the colors, symbols, all that good stuff that's in common between the two cards. I just love it. I just love it when it correlates and you have that carryover. It just makes sense. It really does. In my life, if I ever make a tarot deck, I would definitely want to do it with the Rider-Waite-Smith as a foundation. Those core meanings, they carry over. They really do. And again, it just makes sense to me, right? So that wraps us up. We did it. We did it. And then, again, if you missed any, you know where to find them, either on our group page or on YouTube. And then I think what I'll do is let's see, Rachel Pollack, one of her books that I commonly reference, she has a little spread you can do with just the suit of wands. I think I'll go ahead and I'll post that just so you guys have that. And then so tomorrow at 8, I will start with the court cards for the wands. And so I'll go ahead and start off with the page. And then Saturday, Honor, she will be in our book club, if you're in the book club, and then she'll be talking about the magician and how to embody the energy. So our book club's not the same as, say, these tarot teaching moments, which are really in depth about the core meaning and symbols of the card. Again, it's a very chill reading group where a book's not even required. I mean, it's not more laid back than that, where we use the book as a resource and we post about the overall energy of the card and how to incorporate that energy into your daily life, make things a little less mundane and to bring a little bit more, say, magical moments in your life. And it increases your relationship with the cards, I think. It's like a diamond. It's a different dimension. And then other than that, and then Kyle will be reading for our group on Sunday. That is the gentleman who's a friend of mine, and he works with me at the Grand Slam. He's really cool. He's got a really cool energy to him. I think you guys will like him a whole lot. And other than that, I think it sums us up. And you guys know I'll be at the craft fair at Fox High School this weekend. So if you're out and about, you're in the area, come say hi to me. Do some shopping. They'll have food there too. And I would love it. That would make me so happy. And then other than that, I think that sums us up. You know how I am with that. So Christy, you've hung out with me this whole time. I value your friendship, and you're awesome. So I just want you to know that. And yeah, that's it. So I will talk to y'all later. Good night.